Okay, I'd like to call to order the Sherborn School Committee for January 12th, 2016. I'd like to start, before we get to community comments, I'd just like to thank everybody who's expressed their democratic rights by either sending an email or by attending this meeting. And I'd like to just really quickly go over how we'll proceed. So once I open up the floor for public comment, if anyone would like to comment on something other than class size, if you just raise your hand at the very beginning, I'll let you know so you can get you say your piece, and then we'll be able to focus on what I believe will be the major issue at hand. And the goal is to allow everyone the opportunity to speak who would like to do so. But in consideration of everyone's time, these comments should be brief and should move the discussion forward by adding new information. So I ask that you try to limit your comments to 2 to 3 minutes-ish. Greg Garland will...
I've set it on 2 to 3 minutes or 3 minutes?
3 minutes. And let me just say, he is not the bad guy here. It's the clock. It's not Greg.
It's just a messenger.
He's just the messenger, right. And so we just ask that if you can start to wind down your comments, then that would be great, just in consideration of how much everyone's very busy and how many people are here, and we'd like to really make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. Once the public comment section of the meeting's been concluded, the conversation will return to the school committee, and unsolicited comments from the community will no longer be permitted. Standard operating procedure in school committee meetings across our 3 districts. We invite people to stay. In fact, I really hope that you'll stay and listen to the rest of the meeting. But I have to say, I also understand that for a lot of you, it's hard to get out on a weeknight especially. And I really, really appreciate that everyone's taking the opportunity to come here and spend some time to share your thoughts and opinions. It's a really important part of the process. As we discuss the FY17 budget, it's our responsibility, the Sherborn School Committee, to consider every possible issue. And while our students are always our primary focus, we are also charged with being fiscally responsible. Just as a little background, we've been given a guidance number from Sherborn Advisory that asks us to spend $154,000 less than we spent last year, and the current draft budget is significantly over the budget number that has been offered us as guidance from Advisory. So with a finite pool of money, much of which is already spoken for with contracts and set costs, setting the budget's a very complex process. And what we'll talk about tonight, and we'll continue discussing at the February school committee meeting, are the priorities and trade-offs and what's best for our students. In the end, we're tasked with making the best decision for the district. And once again, I really appreciate you've taken the time to share your thoughts and priorities. And if you have any questions about the process or have additional points that you'd like to share, please feel free to contact any of us at any point in time. We really welcome the chance to converse with members of the community, and especially the parents. So now Superintendent McAuliffe has a couple of quick informational points, and then we'll open up the floor.
Thank you, Ann. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's too early to make any decision about tomorrow, so in case you're wondering. Keeping our fingers crossed. I just want to say a few words about the budget development process, at least how the process works through my eyes. And I've been doing this for many, many years in a number of different districts. The process, the operational part of the process can be different from community to community, but the nitty-gritty detail part of the budget I've found to be pretty consistent and the same across districts. I find the school operating budget development process to be similar to creating or writing a book. And in the end, that's what we end up with. But hopefully we end up with a book that tells the story about what the educational program, in this case for the Pine Hill School, will be for the 2016-2017 school year. And that includes details related to staffing, how many classrooms, how many teachers, not just classroom teachers, but all of our staff, professional and support staff, as well as the details of those pieces of the budget, expense items that support all of our staff and our programs. So the end product, that final book, if you will, is the final budget that goes to town meeting. The writers of this book are the various individuals and groups who, by virtue of their position, either paid or volunteer, work on, monitor, or in some way contribute to this budget development process. And that includes administration and staff, school committee members, advisory committee members, at times town officials, and certainly through various public meetings, the contribution of town people, students, other citizens. The writing of this book begins with an outline. This outline is developed by the administrative team and staff and is based initially on three things. Based on the needs that are projected by that team, so that's the professional staff who are familiar with the programs. It's based on guidance that's delivered from the Sherborn Advisory Committee in this case, and they're looking at financial guidance from a big perspective, the whole town perspective, and then guidance from the school committee, who are focused on, of course, providing what is needed for the school. The outline is then further developed into a rough draft and is presented to the various groups. Along the way, there are various editing and review meetings. Those happen publicly. Those happen within the school setting. And at these various editing and review meetings, there are clarifying questions asked, more detail is asked for and generated and shared, and as a result of this process, edits are made, presented, discussed, and finalized. This process is really an iterative process over those many meetings. Again, whether they're public or staff working on various aspects of it. And after several meetings and edits, the final book is ready for publication, and that's what goes to town meeting for its initial review, and then vote on finalizing it. I've always looked at the budget development process and described it as a process where slow but steady gets us to the finish line. And in the case of this year with the Sherborn public school budget, as Ian had mentioned at the outset, there's currently a gap between advisory committee's guidance and where we are in the budget. And so what that will require is some very, very careful review and consistent review of all the parts that make up the budget. And that review comes and is based on various comments and questions that become public at meetings such as these. So I know that it seems like we're far apart now. I'm confident we'll get to a point where we can move forward, but we have, I think we have time to do that, and I'm looking forward to hearing comments from tonight, comments based on review of some additional information that you received tonight but was not in your packet that you received on Friday, and working through the next month to bring some more detailed information on the budget process at the February 9th meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. I'd like to start, does anybody have any other comments that are not related to class size? Okay, all right. If you could just stand up when you speak, just to make sure that, because we could all hear you, but it's also being recorded for those who couldn't be here tonight. That would be really helpful. And let's just start, would you like to start in the front, since you're in the front row, in the corner?
Can we assume that everybody's from Sherborn? And normally you'd say...
Oh, normally you have to state your name and where, and your and your road,
But
we don't really...
just to know that everybody's... Anybody not from Sherborn? Okay.
Oh, yeah. You're not
Yeah,
speaking.
name and address.
Your name and address would be good.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm hearing from my committee that perhaps stating your name and address when you stand up to start speaking, that would be really helpful. And this is all new to me as well, so we'll figure out this out as the process goes along. Would you like to start? Or-
Actually, I'm mostly here for informational purposes.
Okay.
Trying to understand what the proposals are for class sizes and how it will impact. I have a kindergartner as well as a fourth grader, so I think the majority of us are here regarding what will happen with the fifth grade classes next year. But I also have concerns because I want to make sure that the younger classes also have the attention given to them as well. So I'm kind of curious to hear
Okay.
the whole story.
So that makes sense. So then we try with raising hands, and then I'll call on people. And I apologize, I don't know names, so I'm just going to sort of point. So would someone like to start off then?
I'll start. My name is Kelly Hodge. I live at, I was going to say Goulding Street, but that's where I grew up. Woodland Street. And I'm the current parent of a fourth grader at Pine Hill, and I'm also a teacher at Pine Hill. And I wanted to offer my perspective on what she mentioned, and I know we have a nice large crowd here, so I certainly don't want to take too much time. So I wanted to ask the committee to be aware of community concerns regarding larger than usual class sizes in the second, third, and fourth grade classrooms. I know there's been a lot of focus on second and third specifically going forward into the 2016-17 fiscal year, but I also want to keep in mind the fourth grade classrooms, which are at this point 22, 23, and 23, and just that particular makeup, which is definitely toward the ceiling of our guidelines. I wrote an email that I sent out to just a collection of parents I had, and I hope you won't mind if I read it, because it's easier for me to do that than talk about it. I'm sending this email as a member of the Sherborn community and a parent of a Pine Hill fourth grader. Many of you have recognized that over the past year or two, our class sizes have been increasing, especially in the second and third grades. Additionally, the fourth grade classes are considered large by most standards. This is terrific news, as it means that new families are moving into Sherborn and sending their children to our wonderful school. It also means, however, that classes in many cases are very large, i.e. 22, 23, 24, and even 25 in some classes. As a teacher for all students in grades K through 5, I have a unique perspective as both an educator and a parent. For me, I ask these questions: what does a large class look like? How do they work together? How do I reach all of the students in a large class effectively? Do I have enough materials for every student to use? And will it be necessary to modify my lessons in order to accommodate a large group? And will the experiences therefore be as meaningful? These are the questions I ask myself as the students enter my room, and I see these children for 40 minutes per week. I also ask myself, what is it like for a classroom teacher who sees them for the remainder of the day, which I think is a tough question. After some research about class size in our guidelines, I found it interesting to note that the guidelines in Sherborn state that grades K through 3, we have 18 to 23 students per class, and grades 4 to 5, we have a guideline of 20 to 25 students per class. In Dover, however, the guidelines are different. The number, that's a quote, the number of students in kindergarten through grade 5 shall be in the range of 17 to 22 students per classroom. Now, I recognize that these are guidelines only, but I ask, why is there a difference in what the school committees of Dover and Sherborn consider acceptable class size, when I feel that I probably am speaking for the group that we feel that this is an important issue and maybe one upon which we would agree with our counterparts in Dover. As an educator with 13 years of experience, I can say without hesitation that teaching a group of 18 students is vastly different than teaching a group of 25 for both me and, more importantly, the student. So that's basically the gist of my email. But the questions I've been asking myself as this subject has come to light is I want us to keep in mind what we value as a community. I think small class sizes is very important. It's one of the reasons that when I speak to parents who move into town, they say, I came here for the schools. And they don't say, I came here because of the humongous classes. They came here for the schools. And I think, how can we be most effective? What is best for the students? I think best for the students is a smaller class size so that we can give the care and education that we want to give.
Thank you. Thank you. Who'd like to go speak next? Oh, don't be shy. Oh, go ahead. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Zachary Spillman. I live on Curve Street. I have 2 kids at Pine Hill, a first grader and a third grader. I'm new to town. We moved in August. I was on active duty in the Marine Corps from 2007 through 2014, so we moved around a lot. My third grader is 8. He's lived in 7 houses, including our current one. When we moved in August, and I first sat down with folks over at the school, my biggest concern was integration. You know, they've moved a lot, they've had to meet new people, they're moving again here. How hard or easy is that going to be? I'm pretty proud, I'm proud of the community to say that now, 5, 6 months later, I'm not worried about integration anymore. They fit in well, they've been very warmly welcomed. They really enjoy going to Pine Hill, but I worry about achievement, I worry about advancement. And my oldest son's class has 24 kids in it, including him. I have a hard time dealing with 2 of them. I can't imagine dealing with 24. And when he's just one of a group that day, it's hard for him to get personal attention. Frankly, we see it. We see it in the work, we see it in the assignments, we see it in the homework. The same with my youngest. There's 19 in his class, so it's a little better. But again, these are first graders, and they're tough to handle. You talked a little bit about priorities and trade-offs in the beginning, and I think that for sure that's the issue. I'm new to town, so I'm doing a lot of look, listen, and learn right now. But one thing I'm really curious about is what is the priority, and what are we going to trade class sizes for? There are a lot of things in the budget. I saw some of the things that were posted online. I don't know that technology is a fair substitute for personal attention. I don't know that new windows are a substitute for personal attention, or new equipment in the gymnasium, or new equipment in the cafeteria. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my concern. So I'm here to ask that we take a very hard look at that and what we're willing to trade for that personal attention. That's
Okay, thank you.
Under time, that's good.
how much?
You have 39 more seconds.
Yeah.
You can give some of those to Kelly. You needed those. Any other hands? In the back, yes.
Hi, I'm Lauren Gillette. I live on North Main Street. I have 3 kids, one at Pine Hill in 4th grade, and 2 boys, one in 6th grade and one in 8th grade. So I've been through Pine Hill. My kids all started there. My 2 boys went all the way through. I've seen the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade twice now, and I have to thank the Pine Hill teachers. They've done a wonderful job in the administration, getting my children, my boys, ready to transition. They've had a very easy transition. My concern, and it's not that I diminish the younger grades, but I am concerned about the rising 4th graders into 5th grade and large class sizes, getting them ready to go to a different environment where they won't see the same teacher for the full day. Their 5th grade will be the last time they are with a teacher all day who can help them, who can identify issues they may have, and position them well to getting into 6th grade smoothly. And I worry that as we get into 23, 24, 25 kids in those classes, potentially, if we have more kids coming into town, that can be really hard. And we as a community may miss issues with some of these kids. I also feel like those classes are relatively small. My 6th grader had a big class, and it was tight in there. So again, that's another issue, just purely a size issue. And I shared the same, I thought Kelly's email was very well said, but my focus is on that 4th into 5th and how that is going to be addressed next year, and what is the focus on that if we get a few more kids into Sherborn, so that we're hitting the 24, 25 for the class sizes. Thank you.
Ann, I think it'd be interesting to know when people speak how long they've lived in Sherborn. If people are willing to say.
I can say that so this is Lauren Gillette again. I moved here in 1996, so I've been on a very long time.
20 years?
Not-
Sure. I saw a hand.
Hi, my name is Megan Page. I live at 3 Peckham Hill Road, and we have been in town for about 4.5 years. I have 3 children at Pine Hill right now, a 3rd grader, a 1st grader, and also a preschooler. So I'm kind of thinking about this across the school. And our experience has been, largely really wonderful with the school, thanks to our great administration and teachers. But there's been a huge shift from when my oldest started there in kindergarten to now. So in kindergarten, her class was 16 children, which had 2 full-time teachers. In 3rd grade, her class is now 24 children. It was 25 before the break. And looking at her experience and the attention that she is able to receive on an individual basis has changed drastically. She's a very confident, energetic child, and she actually ended last year feeling like she wasn't good at math, despite all of our efforts at home, because I think that there were just so many children in her classroom that needed attention for things that her teacher wasn't able to give her the individualized attention that she needed to help her figure out how she could learn math, because maybe it was a little bit different than other children in the class. And she's, thanks to a wonderful teacher this year, she's feeling much better and much more confident again. But I think it is really about the individual attention that these children can receive in the classrooms. And when teachers are managing classrooms of 23, 24, or 25 children, their energy is going into classroom management and not directed towards the children's individual needs. And so I'm concerned about the quality of education our children are receiving from that perspective and how we're helping them to achieve their fullest potential. Because I know that we are a community that is committed to exceptional education. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Meredith Atkins, and I live on McGregor Drive, and I moved here in 2009 specifically for the school system. We moved from South Natick, where there were 25 kids in my son's class. As a 1st grader, he had 70% boys in the grade, which is about the makeup of our current 4th grade. I went into volunteer, and I came out uniformly with a headache every time, and I don't know how their teachers did it. And when I moved here, I was just so impressed. They missed a number of things for my son and how he learned and where he needed help that didn't qualify for an IEP, but that he needed identification and we needed help identifying those issues. And we had a great teacher, and we had a pretty small classroom size, under 20, I think, for that grade, and it was the thing that he needed. And he actually kind of likes school now, which is a win for me. And I am in my non-parenting life, which is a very small percentage of my time, it feels like, but I'm an educator, and I teach medical students and residents. And I work for a Center for Education and Research, and we talk about learning theory and how we want our children to learn. And Pine Hill has some outstanding educators that really talk about, in the 4th grade now, self-directed learning for kids. And I got to tell you, I have some medical students that need that now. and the teachers that do that incredibly well, and I know that all of these teachers are working towards that, and I see that in my kids, and I really value that, and I know that's going to make them successful wherever they go and whatever they do because they have these skills. That takes a lot of work and a lot of personal attention, because making a self-directed learner means you really have to know that learner. You have to know that child and spend time with that child to help them figure out where their deficits are and to motivate them to see for themselves. That's a lot of work in an elementary school, and really, really important for our kids' success as they move forward and as they go to the middle school. And again, I have an 8th grade boy, and that change from 5th to 6th is huge. You're seeing teachers very quickly. They don't have the time to know you as well. They don't sit with you for hours on end. They don't really know. And so you have to bring some skills in to middle school to do really well. And I would hate to cripple our outstanding educators with too many kids in their class. And I feel like once we get above this 2022, which we are pushing everywhere, that it's very hard for teachers to do the outstanding job that we know that they can do. and I moved here so that they could do that for my kids. My name is Meg Hyde, and I live at 23 Mill Street. And I just want to add a little bit to what parents have already said, but in the fall, October, I have 3 daughters, a pre-K at Pine Hill, a 3rd grader, and a 4th grader. And for my older 2 kids at the October conference, which I love the October conferences, both of their teachers told me that this was the largest group that they had taught at Pine Hill. And they had roughly, I think, 5 more students in their classes this year than they had last year. And my 3rd grader, her class then gained 2 students since that conference. And the teachers, I really appreciate their honesty in saying that they were adjusting to a much bigger class size. It was a struggle for them. And then for my daughter who's coming into kindergarten, I'm concerned about the increased enrollment at Pine Hill because for my older girls, the class sizes were about 16 or 17 with a full-time kindergarten teacher and a full-time aide, and they just had a fabulous experience. And I think I've heard that the incoming kindergarten class is a large one, and even if there is an aide in each classroom, I think 20 kindergartners with 2 teachers is just not the appropriate student-teacher ratio. So I guess I'm just, my concern is across the whole school, and then I have my selfish concerns for each of the grades my kids are in, but I give tours at Pine Hill for prospective families, and Pine Hill's reputation is incredible and is so well deserved, but I just urge the town to make the increasing enrollment at Pine Hill a really positive experience for families, for students, for the teachers, and for the community as a whole, and make sure that there are enough teachers so that class size stays small, because that is how everyone benefits. Thank you.
Everybody's on time. Short.
Gotta make Greg work a little harder. Yes.
Hi, I'm Melinda O'Neill. I've lived here since 1967. So I know we have 5-ish minutes. Time is super tight, so I'm going to try not to talk too fast and cram whatever I want to bring to the table in. I'm an elementary guidance counselor, and I've been doing that for over 17 years. My plan was to go from the macro to the micro. So the quick macro is, this is 7 or 8 pages of 35 to 50 citations of different journal articles, research studies, all about smaller class sizes and the benefits. I also looked up on ERIC, which is the Educational Research Warehouse. I can see Frank nodding his head. You know, there's books, school class size research and policy, and other citations that I brought in. I'm obviously not going to read them. The point being that all you have to do is Google this stuff, and there's mountains and mountains and mountains of research. So a lot of folks are parents, they're speaking from the heart. There's data and data and data and more data to support it. The other piece of paper that I brought in was a copy of just a small part of a student's IEP. This is a 5th grader who's extremely competent, super academically and cognitively bright kid. He's on an individualized education plan, and he has 13 accommodations that are expected to occur in the classroom by the classroom teacher. So that has nothing to do with what the special educator is doing, what the assistant's doing, the different, the differentiated learning that is going on in a smaller either group or individualized setting. And I just wanted to, bring that in as a visual when you're thinking about what does this look like? What does this look like when I have 20 or 24 kids in front of me, and a couple of them are great sit-down academic learners, but a couple of them are in 504s, and I'm on the hook. I assume you all are familiar with 504, that's ADA legislation, it's civil rights law. If I'm a teacher and I don't take care of those accommodations in my classroom, I can be sued. A parent can sue me and bring me into court over that. That's pretty heavy duty stuff. I might have some kids, maybe one kid just lost their grandparent, maybe one has a mom who's sick. There's all kinds of things that go on in the classroom that our teachers are taking care of that don't even have to do with teaching, but they're an important part of it because attention drives, how does that go? Attention drives motivation, motivation drives learning, emotions are part of attention. So if you can't give those kids the emotional attention that they need, it's going to be hard for them to be attending to and engaged in learning. And then we're going to lose out on these other things that people have been talking about, which is their actual academic education. It's really important. I just have a fourth grader, so my fourth grader will be in fifth grade next year. So I'm speaking for everybody here who has younger kids, and I'm super speaking for my guy, because I'm going to be completely candid and honest. The current fourth grade is a busy class. And if I had the time, I would have looked up Barbara's wonderful email last spring. You had 2 words that capture these kids in a very politically wonderful way. Like really, like we all had a good laugh, right? They're just busy, and mine's one of them. I'm fortunate. He's, academics come pretty easily to him. He does it, it's working for him. But he's a busy kid, and there's a lot of kids that are busy, and there are kids that are quiet. And I teach them religious ed too, so I have a little microcosm of that. And I see the quiet ones, and I think, oh my gosh, you poor thing, you've got to sit while the busy ones are bouncing around. That's hard, and the teacher has to manage all of that. Windows are important. I don't know what was on your list. All that stuff is important. I'll bet we could figure out other ways to pay for that. We could grants, whatever, auctions. We'll fix the windows. You guys give us teachers.
All the articles that you cite, is there any way I could see those, get a
Yep.
copy of them?
I'll hand it to you right now.
I can make
Absolutely.
copies
Yep.
in my office and get them back to you.
Absolutely.
Well, and while she's doing that, I think just for a point of clarification, we have 2 budgets. There's a capital budget and operating budget. And so the windows, roof repair, cafeteria furniture, that's capital, which is a different budget from the operating. And so actually, if we're talking about trade-offs, we're not trading teachers for furniture because it's separate budgets. So just as point of clarification, because there's no reason why people would know that.
But you can borrow from one to the other.
No,
You can't.
no. It's complicated, unfortunately. So
Can I make a point there? It's a group of choices that we've made, and that's the reason I was interested in how long people have been here, is because when you get on the DESE website, you can go back to 2000 with a lot of information. So I've been here for 20 years. My kids was part of the bubble that going through the high school. So it's a series of choices that we've made in terms of class size, in terms of how we pay teachers, in terms of staffing in other areas. So you can compare our elementary school to other elementary schools of certain size or different places that you want to look at, just to see what the whole staffing level is. So it's not a teacher or a window, but it's the whole ball of wax. And out of our whole budget, $4.5 million is salaries. That's all salaries. So it's almost all something that's going up every year, and there's nothing we can do about it because it's all part of the contract. So it's complex. My 2 cents.
thank you.
I didn't put a timer on me though.
It was less than 3 minutes. All right, who else would like to say something? Does anybody have any questions?
We go twice.
Yeah, yes.
My name is Susan Peabody. I live on Farm Road, and I have 4 businesses. And I was just wondering if you could make a comment on why our numbers are higher than they are for the Dover school system, for Sherborn. I didn't know if you guys were aware of that, or if you had any thoughts or comments on that.
I would say it's something that I was aware of. I don't know historically that when that guidance was created.
Referring to the guidelines,
The guidelines
the class
for
size
class sizes.
guidelines.
I mean, I'm just trying to understand. I'm
clarification.
trying to understand for informational purposes.
Could I speak?
Maybe you
Yes.
can comment.
There is a policy manual, of about umpteen million pages, which we look at when there's a problem usually. We should look at it more often perhaps. But originally that each school was doing their own thing. But over the last several years, we try to do more and more things the same between Dover and Sherborn as far as curriculum, as far as professional development, and everything else. And so this is one thing that was probably started a long time ago and just has stayed in that policy manual. So it is something that could be revisited, but it's just a historical thing that when the class size was not approaching the numbers it is now, it was not a question that people would bring up because things were the way that many people wanted it to be. But now that we're looking at it more critically, it might be something we have to revisit.
Yes.
My name is Gavin Mish. I live on Main Street. I've been here for about 5 years now. I have 3 kids at Pine Hill. I'm hearing a lot of comments about parents wanting to decrease class sizes. And I'm a little confused because I'm not sure if it's because the committee has made a decision to not try and make that happen, or is it because you're still deciding how to make that happen? Or what's the process right now? What's the thought process by the committee about trying to lower class sizes?
Well, so the reason that's coming up, I believe, right now is because the class sizes have reached, are bigger than they have been in recent memory. And now's the time that, in budget season, to discuss whether we can and should fund more classes for next year. So no decisions have been made, no decisions. In fact, that's why this is a great process, because this is the time to talk about it, because we are having those discussions right now and trying to figure out how to divide the pie. So nothing has been decided, and we'll have more discussions today, and then we will continue them next month, and can even continue them after that as necessary.
And when does that decision have to be made by? Is there a deadline for that?
George, do you know the deadline?
I think the budgets are, well, we have I'm George Morrell, I'm the chairman of advisory in Sherborn. We will have our final budget meeting built in, I think, the end of February. You guys will come to present your final version of your budget to us.
Yes,
and then we have a public hearing in March 12th where we discuss all the different budgets for town, and then it goes to town meeting at the end of April. And that's when the citizens vote on advisory, our role is to just advise the different budget makers in the town how we feel necessary. As Greg said, just to expand on that a little bit, it's a big pie that we have, and what we looked at this year, when Ann mentioned that the budget had gone down this year, the reason for that was this year we looked at budgets on a trend basis rather than in the past just saying, you had this much of a budget last year, we're going to give you a little bit more this year. What we were seeing was from some departments, some of it's anecdotal because you don't know how things change from year to year, but we had large turnbacks from a number of groups, so we took the spending trends over 3 years and said this is what the budget should be for fiscal year 2017. So now the process is, they're, as Greg said, they need to go through and say that they're over the budget that they had last year. We're asking them to come in under where they were. So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made on how the process works.
That wasn't
So that gives a little clarification of how the process works.
Can I speak to that? Okay, just to give a little bit of history, back in 2008, 2009, we had 24 sections, but we also had 470 teachers.
Students.
Excuse me.
That's a really good ratio.
That was a wish, yeah. Okay, 470 students. And, as the number of students dropped, being fiscally responsible and also keeping good class size, we dropped it down until this year we actually have, and also last year, we had 19 sections, so we lost 5 sections, okay? In the present budget that we have actually handed in and shared with the town and the finance director and advisory, actually adds 2 sections back, okay? That's the present budget. And so now we have to take a look at the needs of the town, advice from advisory, and our continued advice from the committee and the administration to decide where to go from here. But the actual budget right now added 2 sections back in.
The draft,
The draft.
right,
Two-
and it's
two additional.
a first high water mark draft.
Right.
Important to know.
Can I-
And then Greg.
Um,
And then-
So if you'll be patient with us, because we're sort of at a critical time, because the school population has dropped so much. It's about 100 kids. I think the peak was 488. I was looking back when my daughter went, like from first grade to second grade, or kindergarten to first grade, the population rose by 41 kids in 1 year. So we're at a level, we've gotten so low, and we thought we were going to go lower. I mean, we're looking at population declines. We thought it was going to be like 350, but it's popped back up. But we're in that, so there's been a lot more kids there, but when you've got 90 kids or 85, you're going to have more sections and smaller classes. But now when we're hitting down around 370 or whatever the number is, it's tough. Because you could, if you went by the guidelines specifically, you could have 23 kids. If you just went first grade through fifth grade, you could have 69 kids, 69, 69, 75, 75. And in theory, if you added 5 kids, 1 in each grade, you'd say, oh, we need 5 new teachers. So it's going to be pretty tricky probably over the next 2 years or so to see where the population, where it comes in. It's just at a critical point because it's so low.
You had your hand raised.
Are those 2 new sections added, been targeted to specific grades already, or are they just part of the equation?
Well, we as school committee members don't specify, we don't tell the school administration which grades. We allow the building administrators and the experts. We provide the FTEs, the full-time educators, and then they target where they see the need is most critical. So that would.
Dr. Brown, can you?
My thinking was adding a section at grade 3 and at grade 4. When we drafted the budget, it was the week before we looked at the kindergarten census, or the children eligible for school enrollment, which was alarmingly higher than the last several years. So that wasn't a number at play then. So I was looking, we were anticipating that the same number of K children would come in next year.
And frankly, it's a moving target to some degree. We found out, like over the summer or even this year, you may just happen to have an influx. You could have a family that has triplets in 1 grade, and it ends up then tipping 1 class where you didn't think that the numbers were critical. So it's something we try to keep more fluid for as long as possible, just because you don't know if somebody could get transferred out and have several students. So the number, it's changing, and so we also are trying to remain flexible and need to, as experience has shown us, because who knew that you'd have so many move in to different specific grades.
I
Yes.
just had a question about what you just said. Is there ever a case then in which the committee would approve some sort of a contingency fund so that, we have these projections and we have the numbers that we have now and we don't know what it's going to look like in August. What if something does happen, like you say, like the triplets moving in? Is there a way for us to sort of come up with a solution right then and there, or is it like we're not, because the budget's already been approved and we can't hire another teacher, even if we had, let's say, 10 kids suddenly move into one particular grade that had not received an additional teacher? Do we have anything like that in place?
Well, so it's my understanding that first of all, Bill has experience with this when he was in Winchester, and we spoke about this. You want to speak really quickly?
Sure. The short answer is that at least in past practice, there is not a contingency fund. But in my past practice, but again, realizing that it was a much larger district with 5 elementary schools, we often carried X number of additional classroom sections, the cost of a classroom section, in the budget. while we continue to monitor class size in all of the schools at all of the grade levels right up through the end of July. And if there were some surprises and unexpected enrollment increases, then we had the opportunity to create a new section. If we did not create those sections, then our understanding with the town officials, the school committee's understanding and the administration's understanding with the town officials, is that that money would remain in that budget, would not be spent, and then would be turned back to the town at the end of the year when we closed out the budget. So much easier to do that, again, when you have a budget that has 108 to 110 elementary classroom sections. Much more difficult when it's smaller.
I also, yes, yes, please.
On advisory, we're also talking about having a NOI with the town at town meeting to set up a contingency for the school committee, not only for if they need an additional teacher at the last minute, but also they have a large shifting number in their out-of-district special ed costs. In some years it's very low, like last year it was a lot lower than it had ever been. We may get some kids who move in and all of a sudden that jumps back up, and if we don't have it in the budget, so on the town level, putting a contingency budget in for the school for those two items, we're going to look at that on our committee.
I apologize, I was late, so it may have been addressed already, but the budget for the Pine Hill, that's just a Sherborn budget, correct? Right? The middle school and high school, those are operate differently.
There's a regional school committee that that kind of handles the middle school and high school, and then Sherborn has our own school committee that runs the Pine Hill budget and Pine Hill School. And Dover has their own school committee that handles Chickering. That's why, like you said, Susan, that's why they have different guidelines, because it's totally different committees that can make up. You guys can do something completely different than Dover decides to do. So that's the big difference. It's not a full regionalization like some school districts are.
So I don't want to run away on the tangent, but so in my sort of fantasy world and in the work that I do, instead of a contingency budget line item, it would be so awesome to have a human being there and to have like a rotating person who had a special ed background that could teach K to 5 and stayed on staff. And that person went to the need, and because the needs fluctuate, and we didn't know that there was going to be 30 families moving and they all had kindergartners that year, and we didn't realize that, wow, all these kids ended up, getting looked at more closely, and 7 of them in the 5th grade now require some pretty heavy-duty IEPs, whatever, fill in the blank. But it would be so phenomenal, and as somebody who, because I'm a guidance counselor, I'm used to flexing, right? So my job requires me to be an expert in, death and dying and behavior management. I mean, there's 1,000 things that we have to be an expert in depending on the need. I think classroom teachers could do the same thing if they came in with the qualifications. And our assistants do that regularly, right? I mean, we pull assistants all the time and say, geez, boy, Melinda's having a really hard time. We need you to meet with her for the next month or two. Or, gosh, we need you to sub in and cover for our math curriculum specialists. I mean, these things happen all the time. If we had that built into our budget, and that was part of how we did business, it would be so flexible, and so I think it would be amazing. But you'd have to get the right person. It would require a lot of, interviews and all the rest of it. They'd have to have a lot of qualification, and it's not right for everybody. But it's just sort of a thought.
Great. Thanks.
Melinda, where do you work?
In Sudbury.
We have, yes. We'll do just a couple more, and then unfortunately we've got more business to take care of, like a whole rest of the budget.
Just a very brief thought on
Yes.
priorities. Maybe it's an overly simplistic view to say that $1 in operating costs, $1 in operating budget, $1 in capital budget, it's $1 to the town and to our taxpayers either way.
Right.
But I think that we all kind of share a certain priority, and we're here to ask that you get behind, as a committee, that you get behind that priority. We may have to go to town meeting and sell it to the town. We may have a bigger fight on our hands, but we need the school committee to support it first, or else really we can't ever try to address that other issue.
Yes.
Understand the numbers, how much does it cost to add a section?
In this budget, we budgeted Masters plus 5, which, what is that?
Approximately $60,000, and then the hidden cost, which is not so hidden at the town level, the benefits package.
Which is about 14,000
About
on average.
14,000.
Of just employer costs, and the
$75,000.
employee pays about 7 of that. That's just healthcare.
Yeah,
The
there-
state pays retirement for the teacher.
And there are other considerations as well. In terms of the cost, a new professional staff member, over the last 3 years, the average salary, beginning salary at Pine Hill of a new professional staff member, so that's a staff member who is would be a member of the Dover-Sherborn Educators Association, and their salary is governed by a salary schedule. That average salary has been approximately $61,600, and that is the equivalent of a master's plus 15 credits, step 5. So we've looked at that over the last 3 years, and that's the number that we use basically when we're budgeting anticipated new staff, additional staff above and beyond. But the other considerations, and again, I've had too much experience with this, I think. One consideration is space. Is there an actual classroom space available to add another 1 section or another 2 sections? And that's something that, Barbara and I have had some conversations about. Obviously, 7-8 years ago, there were 24 classroom sections. So there's 5 classroom spaces in that building that were classrooms 7 or 8 years ago, but are being used and utilized to the full extent now. So the logistics of determining where the people who are using the classroom space now, where they would do their work. So that's a consideration. Another consideration is of course, the cost isn't tremendous, but we have to remember that there are costs for classroom materials and supplies that we need to be aware of as well.
Would you indulge me?
Do I have a choice?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're the chair. Just as far as budget, so you're all going to be here next month, right, when we talk about this. So I've been on the committee for 4 years, and I got involved because I didn't think our school budgets were sustainable, because I was concerned. My kids went through Pine Hill. We had a wonderful experience, and if we start making rash decisions, things are going to get out of control, and all of a sudden at the last minute you're going to say we've got to cut. Well, almost 80% of the budget is in salaries, and if you have to cut something, it's going to be people, and I think that's kind of the last thing you want to do. But regarding capital versus operating, $1 for capital goes away over time. You buy wind as you pay it off. Once it goes into the operating budget, it's sort of there for forever, so it lingers. And then the last point is, one of the choices we made is to pay our teachers well. So our teachers the average teacher at Pine Hill makes $100,000 a year, and that's way more than anybody in the surrounding communities. I think the next closest is Millis at like $88,000, and if you just switched out those numbers, you'd save about $400,000. It's a lot of money. So, and nothing's going to change in that contract. I mean, that's the way it is, and unless other people start paying their teachers way more, it's just never going to change. It's going to be baked in. So that's it.
Okay. And we have closing comment? That'd be awesome.
Amy Kozlowski on Lake Street. And I just have one quick thing to add. I echo everyone who's commented tonight, and also I commend you guys because you have a huge job on your hands, I think. But I just want to bring it back to a couple of things that popped into my head. One is the mission statement of Pine Hill, which actually, if you read it online, it says it's a commitment to a favorable class size. And so I think it's really important for a school to stick to its roots. And if we, as a community, really want a favorable class size, we need the community to back it. And also, I've been following closely the Challenge Success program that the district has utilized. And I think if we are talking to our students about stress reduction and positive lifestyle, that we need to also reflect that in our teachers and make sure that they can also have a environment where they're not stressed with 24 or 25 children in the class. And I've definitely seen an impact in my own children coming from 17 to 24 or 25. So I just wanted to note that. So thank you.
I would like to thank everyone so much for coming and speaking tonight, and I'd like to really encourage you to stay involved. We would love to have, well, maybe not quite so many people, but a good crowd. Every month, it would be great. Oftentimes, it's in the back, Amy and Angie kind of hanging out, and Lori, and that's kind of, and that's about it. So, and George, right? So please feel free to come and join in. We'll be discussing, you're welcome to stay, and we will be discussing the budget. Also to note that we do have, if you want to look back, or if you want to just stay abreast of what's happening, if you go to the school website, they do have, under the school committees, they have our packets posted that we get to prepare for our meetings every month, and that's really will help keep you informed. And especially if you start reading through those and something doesn't make sense or you have questions, once again, please feel free to contact us. That's part of what we're here for. A good part of what we're here for is to help you understand, make sure the community is well informed.
Can I just add one thing? Vicki Relis, I'm co-chair of the advisory. I've lived in Sherborn about 11 years. And I want to thank all of you for coming as well. I think it's great, the turnout. Part of what we do is look at the town as a whole. And whether you realize it or not, there's a lot of things besides school that impacts what's going on, monies. And if you all can get involved and come to the town and start looking at where money is spent and who is behind decision making and revenue production in the town that will lower taxes. And we've really tried hard to lower the taxes this year and last year. And we almost did it, but it was tough because we had some things come up. And if you all can join us trying to make the town more self-sufficient, it would be very helpful. I mean, I love seeing all your faces here, but there's other places we need you too. So if you can try to do that, that would be great. Thanks.
But come to school committee first. All right, well, thank you very much. I'm going to close the community comments part, and we'll continue on with the meeting. We are not having a CSA update this month. Angie's going to do that next month. Thank you for helping to shorten the meeting slightly.
The thought is just for time, it would be better.
Are in the audience.
So, it's move on to reports. We've got the principal's report. Isn't Barbara? She's good.
Well, this is going to sound a little bit like a plant, but one of the first things I wanted to acknowledge, I think we've been in school about 15 instructional days since our last school committee meeting, so the principal's report is briefer than usual. And I will be brief in an effort to get to the budget discussion. I wanted to recognize professional talent and commitment of the Pine Hill Chorus and Band instructors. Kelly Hodge and Dan Davis have both taken individual and collective initiative this year in response to the interest and talents of our students. We, for the first time, to my knowledge, have a fifth grade jazz band, which is a group of students that are warranting challenge and are ready for that next step, in addition to the fifth grade band. Kelly instituted a fourth grade chorus this year in addition to the fifth grade chorus. We have a strings ensemble that meets before school. It happens to be 3 children, but it's a really cool collection of viola and violin players. I wanted to mention the district choral professor. Oh my goodness, I'm either over-caffeinated or overtired. The district Both. The district choral performance is tomorrow evening, and later this year, you'll hear artist in residence opportunity for our fifth grade chorus members with an a cappella group coming in to work at Pine Hill, funded through CSA, so it's really exciting. Get out your calendars. I wanted to make sure that you all know that there are pancakes available a week from Saturday. The third annual pancake breakfast, Mr. Hess has been known to
Burn a few.
to frequent the sausage stand. Thank you to the Sherborn Police Department for their continued collaboration. As you recall, we talked last year about how the program formerly known as DARE is now known as DARE Keeping It Real. And Officer Smith started working with our fifth grade students earlier this week, yesterday, and will run 10-week lessons with the students, and I gave a little description about the Keeping It Real program, and that ties in with our health curriculum. The CSA will report in detail at our next meeting, but they are in the process of generously allocating $4,000 in grants to teachers for different enrichment opportunities. And you can see the rest in terms of the professional. I think there's a page missing in your packets, and I will be sure to send that to you, of all of the professional development and school events that have gone on in the past 15 instructional days. But I'll send that to you electronically because it's good to reference.
Thank you.
Karen unfortunately is ill, so,
Did she share with you or you share with her? Because you didn't feel well either, right?
yeah.
All right.
No, I think it was...
Is there anything you feel that needs to be highlighted?
No, I
Or
think
we'll
Karen's
just go
report is
through it?
pretty straightforward unless you
Okay.
have any questions.
Anybody have any questions? No. All right, that's great. Thank you. All right, Terry Green, please.
I didn't have an updated report for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, I didn't see one, but I thought maybe it was in our,
Do you have it from agenda item?
oh, good, oh, I see, I've got the old one. Has it been updated since mine? Sorry. I printed mine out from the email.
Yeah, just the,
Okay, so that's fine, so just
Terry's
yours.
not on the agenda.
So then we'll just go to Hans.
Yeah, in your packet, you have the status of appropriations analysis through December of 2015. Positive salary variance of 95,145. Once you adjust it for non-encumbered salary, it's about 53,935. The explanation of the surpluses in those categories are the same as the last time I presented last month. On the negative side, salary side, business and finance, again, that's the additional back office support that we have going on right now. It's district sped leadership. Again, we saw this last month, Director of Special Education allocation for the new team chair came in higher than anticipated, and the transition time of the retired sped director, excuse me. Paraprofessional was the extra paraprofessional. That was put in after the budget was finalized last year. And on the negative side, the two things that I brought up last time that we had to look out for that the bills have actually hit for was the extraordinary maintenance. Again, this is due primarily to some unanticipated expenses, in particular fire alarm upgrades that were required by the Sherborn School Department, emergency septic tank repairs that we had to perform, and this also now includes the recent roof repairs that you wanted done the last meeting that we were at. That's been, actually, that work was done last week.
Oh, good.
So it is
That's
now
good.
finito. Unfortunately, on this transportation side, we have a negative variance of 18,330. Looking at the budget, this is primarily pushed by higher than anticipated or unbudgeted summer transportation expense. And then they've also have a rather large, almost $15,000 parent reimbursement expense that was unbudgeted, and that's those two items are pushing this into the negative right now.
I've got a question, Barbara. It may be too early to tell. Do you have any sense of how well the soffit, the work that was done on the soffit, it's
It's
had
complete.
a couple cold, it was complete, but do we have a sense of?
I know from Mr. Gimlet's perspective, we have warmth in the third grade hallway, and they've been pleasantly delighted with the quality of the work.
But above the tiles, where the pipes were freezing.
The draftiness,
Pipes
yes.
were freezing
Yeah.
last year.
I believe they noticed an improvement immediately. The work was just finished 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
the final touches.
Exactly.
And
And then they also went out and all the weather stripping on all the interior doors. I mean, they actually went above and beyond what they had to
Yeah.
do.
Of course, we didn't have an opportunity to try it out before break with the balmy weather, but it's paying off now.
Right.
Great.
You'll be able to tell.
Yeah, this week will be a good one to test it.
Yes, yes.
Right. Thank you. Capital update.
Okay,
Yes.
on December 22nd, Hans and I went to the Board of Selectmen's meeting to present our capital request, and I think it was well-received, and they voted to put it on the agenda for town meeting. And they're not going to vote to support any of the capital projects until they get them from all the requests from all the different departments. And also, we are still working on the aforementioned windows, because it's a rather complicated project, and on what level of glazing and so forth to have in the windows. We have a 26-page report that we received from the engineering company, and we are meeting this coming Thursday morning to go over that and finalize the solution for the windows, so we can move on to the next step. But I think everything is going well so far.
Can I ask a quick question? In the advisory letter, it talked about 2.9, almost $3 million in capital requests, and, 400 and change was the schools. I'm just kind of curious, if all that's going to the selectmen, what's the other 2.5 million that's not schools?
I don't know. I'll have
Did we buy the fire truck? We got the fire truck?
No, it's not. I have no idea off the top of my head.
Okay, that just seems large. Okay, that's fine. I was just curious.
Maybe it is. Maybe $1 million of it is the bonding of the library. Maybe.
Okay.
That might be a big chunk of it. I think there's some CMMD.
But we didn't borrow it.
process here as well. Road work. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. All right, so we'll go to the operating budget. And I don't know if that's Bill or Hans or both.
So if I'll begin,
Okay,
if that's okay.
let's do it.
Let's set up here. So just a couple of comments first to perhaps elaborate on some earlier comments. In your packet, you received some responses to questions that were posed by the Sherborn Advisory Committee, as well as from some school committee members. And there was also information that we needed to put together as a result of a number of questions and requests that were brought up at the December meeting as well. So we've been working hard on trying to put together this information. It's been, there's been a lot of work put into that. By the time the packet got out, there was still quite a bit of information that we wanted to provide, but we were not able to get it into the packet. So at the table, you have a manila folder that has a number of documents that contain information and data and responses to those questions. There's still, as far as I know, and I'm sure there'll be more questions and perhaps requests tonight, there's still 2 pieces of information that we're finalizing, and we won't wait until February to get it to you. We'll get it out to you as soon as those are completed. But one piece of information is a historical look at special education enrollments in district as well as out of district. We were able to provide, well, I think the Sherborn Advisory asked for some regional numbers, which we do now have. And then the other piece is a historical view of staffing levels. So you get a glimpse of that in some of the enrollment documents that were provided, but I know in the past you've received historical data on all of the different professional support positions. So we're putting that together. We're taking what has been provided in the past, and we're adding the current year's data to that. So hopefully that will be done very soon, and we'll send it out to you. In the memo that you received, the cover memo, I did indicate that I felt there'd be a number of recommendations for adjustments to the proposed budget that would be provided. I will tell you, quite honestly, I only have one that I can assertively provide tonight, and we'll talk about that later on. This process has been interesting and become a little more complicated and complex than what I had envisioned. But part of that is due to the complexity and number of questions and asks, and I think that's good. Clearly, those that are really involved in this budget, school committee members and town officials, are very familiar and are really getting into the document completely. So that's appreciated. But I know that, again, I'm used to, frankly, I'm used to being in a situation where there's typically a gap during the budget development process, and we have to work to close that gap. But the gap that exists is high. And one of my comments on the cover memo was, and we will do this, we continue to carefully review all aspects of this proposed budget, as well as our ability to realistically get to advisory guidance. So that's going to continue to take some time. We want to be very careful and critical in our review. We just received in the last week, the December 31st status of appropriations. So that will give us a look into what we've spent so far this year on certain lines, and go back to previous year's expenditure amounts in those lines, so that we can do our best to meet the model that has been set for next year around trend budgeting. So again, I feel that it's better to take more time, so that when we are ready to make recommendations for adjustments, at least at the administrative level, they've been carefully thought out. We'll know what the impact is, so we can provide you that data as well. And then we can be comfortable or not with those recommendations.
I may have missed this. So the next meeting, will we see a revised budget, or when will we say here's the final one?
So again, I think, and I apologize for being new, but I need some guidance from you. My practice in the past has been to not recreate the budget document with adjustments, but to present recommendations for adjustments to the school committee, so that the school committee can discuss those and then take action on those. And at the end of that, and we keep a running record of what those adjustments are as we move towards finalizing the budget and sending it on to advisory. I'm looking at the schedule. George, I know that we may be off on some dates. We have a tentative date of February 10th as meeting with advisory. I don't know if that's still on. I assume if we're going to meet, then I assume that would be an interim meeting. I think there certainly will be movement as a result of the February 9th meeting. But we may benefit from some additional time and perhaps another meeting.
I think that the issue is February 17th week is school vacation week.
Right.
So that kind of puts a block out of one
We may
weekend.
have to add another date because the board's, a lot of it's contingent on the board of selectmen and getting to
Right.
budgets.
Mhm.
We have some open times based on them, completing it earlier than they think. So if that's the case, then that would be fine.
Yep.
But it's a little flexible. We're
Right.
probably going to have to add.
And perhaps the school committee, we may need to consider having another meeting after the 9th as well.
Because we have the 24th is when we're meeting, when the region.
With the
we are
region,
meeting with the
correct.
region.
Correct.
So that's going to be a whole night, so that's,
And you're making, your public presentation is March 12th? It's
March
not-
12th is
It's
when we
not
have our
March
public
19th.
hearing, yes.
Right, so
There's a tight time frame.
Right.
Whether it be that first, I mean, even if it,
The first week of
the
March.
first week of March, maybe when we have to do it. I mean, it's just-
Additional, we may just have to.
Or you have, at that point, you should have your final budget, I would think, at
Well,
the beginning of March.
I'm hearing that, yes, that we will have to. But that's, no, and that's good for us to know, so that we can work towards that.
So what are we doing tonight? Are we,
I'm going to get into that.
we going to go?
Yeah. So what I'm proposing to do tonight is to use the packet of information and not go through it verbatim. What I would suggest is we open up to the first page. If anyone has further clarifications or wants to make comments on any of the issues any of the items on page 1, then we make them and talk about them. Anything here where it says, information will be provided in a separate attachment, that information, again, with the exception of the 2 pieces that I mentioned, are in the manila folder, and they're in order. They were put in the folder in order of this document, so...
Moved them.
That's all right. So if, and I know you're just getting them tonight, and so there will be value and benefit for you to review those further, and I anticipate that there'll be further questions. And again, we can go through the similar process that we did for this meeting, for the February 9th meeting. But we can take a quick look at those documents, and on a couple of the documents, there's just some data that I want to quickly highlight for you. Does that sound like a plan?
That does. If I've already figured something out and I don't know where it comes, that I have a question about one of these documents from the folder. So in the historical kindergarten enrollment versus kindergarten eligible census data,
Yes.
so I understand that if you look historically, that, I just don't understand if it looks like that the number, for instance, in FY13, you had 38K eligible, but you enrolled 49.
Right.
So that means, so they've moved, the point is that they moved in between when they were declared eligible and the first letters were sent? I don't
No,
know how that can be a jump by them.
so this is one of those documents that I wanted to go over.
Okay,
How,
so-
how it's formatted.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. That would be fine. All right, so go ahead and start.
So on page 1, there was the first question was brought up by advisory. It's a question related to a review of administrative staffing level at Pine Hill. Has been re-examined since the enrollment has decreased over the past few years. Again, the response is there, and we're still looking at that. I don't know from history, I don't know myself, but I know there have been some adjustments made in the last few years. The assistant principal's salary is being partially funded through the REAP grant. That was a change that was made 2 or 3 years ago. Beyond that, I'm not sure, and of course, there have been some adjustments around special education, which you're well familiar with, and that's happened over the last couple of years.
And if I just may add, the assistant principal's position was reduced from a 12-month to a 10-month.
Okay.
Yes.
At the same time, we reappropriated funding.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's a .8 FTE?
Well, it's a 1.0 FTE, but the salary is reduced in proportion to 10 months instead of 12 months.
So when we get the staffing sheet,
I think what we show is a 1.0
so 1.0?
assistant principal, but there will be a note went from 12 months to 10 months.
Because in the past, I think what people are referring to in the past, it was a .5 a long time ago, and at one point we didn't have one. So, okay, so it'll be 1.0.
Well, in that it works full-time during the school year.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
going to interpret the numbers.
Yeah.
There's
We
always.
we reduced it, the equivalent of about a month and a half
Yeah,
of the salary.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, and the understanding is that not everything can be compared apples to apples when we look at, certainly when we look at staffing.
That's for sure, yeah.
One question of advisory that somebody on my committee asked was, we still are receiving the REAP grant?
Yes,
money?
we are.
That was somebody on my committee.
Yeah.
I think somebody thought that wasn't.
That was going to go away
that was
next
going
year or
away.
not?
No, it is not.
That was the purpose for putting it in that branch, because that was going to be something that was ongoing, fairly consistent.
But I think that one of the possibilities, though, is that move the REAP grant to fund more specifically a position that is more specifically suited to what REAP is funding, and move that, the money that's paying for that, so switching around so that the assistant principal's job would be paid outright, but it wouldn't be a change to the budget, it's just shifting. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And I think the confusion might be, my understanding is the allocation we get from the REAP grant is awarded every 3 years, and then that amount could change. So next year, maybe the third year, is probably what that nuance is.
So when we come back on February 9th, there may in fact be some information related to the REAP grant, the funding of the assistant principal's position, how that in fact, there may be a recommendation to adjust that and fund another position that is currently being funded through the budget, through the REAP grant. And it relates back to a further review of the purpose and the goals of the REAP grant, and what we really should be looking at, what the kind of services that grant should be funding. There was a question about providing information for all positions that are cost-shared with the other districts. So the first document in your packet looks like this. That identifies all of the positions that are cost-shared, and it provides you with all of the detail there. So I'm just going to move on unless somebody interrupts me with questions. Is that okay? And then the next two documents are related to enrollment. There was a request by the advisory committee to, well, the bottom line request, after getting through the verbiage, was they were looking for updated enrollment numbers. So this is a sheet, you've seen this sheet before. It's the same format that we've used, but we've added the December 1st and the January 1st enrollment numbers. And to give you more detail, and, you know, I'm certainly interested in feedback if you think it's too much, but we've also provided the breakout based on the December and January numbers of how many sections, the average class size for that grade, and the breakout of those sections, the individual breakout of those sections.
And we should just note that the numbers for December 1st and
Right.
January 1st for grade 3 need to be switched. It's for grade 3, December 1st should be 23, 23, 24.
Would you just say that again? Would you start over, please?
Sorry, so the one that includes the January 1st update, enrollment update,
This one here, the first one that
with the
says
pretty yellow and the little green.
October 1, December 1, January 1 at the top.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yep.
For third grade, December 1st breakout should be 23, 23, 24. Same grade 3, the breakout for January 1st should be 23, 24, 24. 'Cause then
It would
that'll
just reverse.
just
I'll
reverse, so then
fix
it
that.
equals the
Sorry about
70 and
that.
71.
So my question, and I may not be understanding this correctly, if you go down to the bottom, the far left column, 2017-18, you've got 50 for kindergarten, pardon me? My time's up.
Okay, next question.
Lucky, how lucky. You got 2017-18, 50 for kindergarten, that's got, I mean.
They haven't, those numbers have,
Okay.
Greg, those numbers have not been adjusted. I haven't even begun thinking of
Okay.
kindergarten numbers in 17, 18, frankly.
Okay, I just wanted to,
So it's just,
make sure.
they're there, but not.
They're
not
placeholders.
relevant. Yeah,
They're
that's
just
what I-
placeholders.
That's what I thought when I was looking at some other stuff, so thanks for confirming that.
One more question on that. Can I ask a question on some buildings?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think with the shift with the December 1st and January 1st numbers in the third grade, your fourth grade projection for 16-17 is only 69. Should that be higher because you had the, because I thought you took the 102% of where you were January 1st. No?
No, so the projections are based on the 3-year survival rate. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, and I expect that we'll have a minimum of, for next year, I suspect we will have a minimum of 71, of 71 students in grade 4, I would imagine. But the way that this model works is that the 3-year rate is based on in-migration, it's mathematically in-migration and out-migration that literally occurs between October 1st and September 30th.
I see. So it's not picking up those December and January numbers because it's starting with October 1st.
Exactly, that's
Because-
exactly right.
But more realistically, you're probably going to have at least the 71 that you currently have. in the third grade.
Yes, it's why I forget at whatever meeting, and I'm happy to continue to remind people of this because I think it's important. When we talked in our narrative about projecting enrollment for next year, we provided a range, and that range was based on the 3-year rate and the 1-year rate in that box that's in red. So under the 1-year rate for a 4th grade, we note that based on last year, the in-migration and out-migration for 4th grade was higher than the 3-year average. And that 1 year, if we just use the 1-year rate, would project 72 students. So we're still within that range. And in fact, you know, it may very well be higher. You know, there's a margin, there's a plus or margin.
Those are the grades that are right on the bubble. for the
Yeah, they are.
class size that are-
They are.
Right.
So because of that, one of the things that is adjusted, and I wanted to bring your attention to the note at the very bottom of this spreadsheet that says adjusted January 12. You'll note that, again, this chart assumes, even though we've requested 2 additional classroom teachers, this chart still assumes 19 sections.
You just say, yeah.
We haven't, right?
You
And,
don't
and,
yet.
and what we've done is looking at and utilizing the class size guidelines, which that's what they are now. We've made an adjustment and projected 4 sections in grade 3, which I have, and 3 in grade 5. So that's an adjustment. The other adjustment is, you'll note that I've adjusted the kindergarten projection to 65, and that number comes from that sheet we'll talk about in a few minutes, where, you know, we've used a mathematical model. Again, you know, because the data's there and we can use it. You know, my experience is that it's really That's more similar to the birth rate model, where you have the birth rate number that is attributed to Sherborn residents. In this case, it would be the birth rate data that's collected by the state. That would come from the year 2011. And then you look at that number. What a lot of districts do is look at that number. They go 5 years out, and again, over a period of time, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever the enrollment number was 5 years later compared to that birth number, that's a ratio, and they average it out. My experience where I've been in the past is that number jumps all over the place. 128% to could be 80% of that number. And yeah.
Much bigger in Sherborn.
Yeah. And when I was in Winchester, I developed a model where when we collected the census data every year, and we did it as of February 1st, we actually asked for the data for all age 0 to 5-year-olds, and we recorded that every year. So, again, I used the 0-year-old census data to project what the 5-year-old data might look like based on past history. That proved to be a much more accurate enrollment, but we don't have that data at this point here. So I'll get back into that in more detail.
Can I just, just looking at the numbers, though, just based on the projections, which I heard you said that, it's merely a number that we're throwing out based on possibility, but maybe not even probability. But if we came in with 397 students, if you look historically, that's the highest enrollment since 2010, 2011.
Right.
When there were 23 sections. There were 4 sections for all but kindergarten, for every grade but kindergarten.
Right.
So if that number is even remotely accurate, we've got to add sections, and historically it's supported. So, because, but it all
But if
depends.
you've got sections of 17 or 18 or 19,
Well, and it also depends upon where those students fall. It may turn out that if there are more in, say, 2nd and 4th grades, those classes might be larger.
Absolutely.
And then you need the 4, and it may turn out that you don't need the extra section in 3rd grade because there hasn't been the moves.
Right.
And so, I'm just saying, though.
because of that, though, you can't say absolutely we've got to add sections. It depends on where, it depends on how it
Well, if the
how it
numbers.
falls out.
If you have, it does depend upon how the numbers fall out, but you're going to have to add something to what we have now at an enrollment of 379.
If I may point out, our one-year average in migration, out-migration, we've averaged a net of 6 additional students per grade level if the committee is looking just for 1 year average.
And I think my point is that we just don't know, because that's based on 1 year.
Right.
I think we're the beginning of a trend of moving in, but who knows?
No, that's true. I did provide you in October with some data that went back to June, where before our final numbers, our September and October 1st numbers were in. I took this model, and using the model, I projected what 15, 16-year enrollments would be in September. And I think we found, I think what that data showed was that 3 of the 6 grade levels, the projections were either on target or within 1
Yeah.
with 2 students. The other 3 grades, there was 1 grade, there was a difference of, I think, 5 or 6 students. And you can see that, in the, I forget what grade that was. It might have been grade 3, actually. But, so again, over time, I think the data is, it's a helpful guideline. I've found it to be a helpful guideline for budget use in determining the number of sections you may need. And again, that's based on what the committee's class size guidelines are.
Okay.
Capital, question asked about that, there's a response provided. I'll move on to page 2. There was a question that, again, talked about looking for special ed numbers. This particular was looking, when they say provide full special ed numbers, they're looking for in-district special ed numbers at the region by grade. So that's been provided. That is on this sheet. This sheet was in your original budget book, but the region special ed in-district numbers were just region numbers. So this has been updated to reflect the region in-district numbers by grade. And there was also some requests for pre-K enrollments. So there's a written response in this document regarding that. And then later in your folder, there's a chart with some pre-K enrollment information as well. So 2 years ago, there were 24 students in the pre-K program. Identifies 11 of them were special education. This year, there were 17 students, which 7 were special education. And we have projections for next year, which are down from that. So that's an area that we will look at over the course of the next month as well. Yeah.
So, in your budget, if the population is projected at 1 special ed student and only 15 students in total, are you still projecting to have 2 classrooms?
That's what we're reviewing, George.
Okay. That just seemed because
The-
you've got a $200,000 line item in the budget for 2 teachers. I think that.
Yeah, and we have to clarify that. It's actually 1.5 teachers.
Okay. I see that on here now. I think.
Yeah, the 0.5 of the morning session teacher, the other 0.5 is actually, she's the school's BCBA, and works 50% of the time providing services pre-K 5.
And I see that the
around
revolving
that.
fund pays for the educational assistants. I didn't
They do
know
as well.
that.
Yes, that's right. So we've tried to clarify that.
And one other question on this, as we're talking about it, how do you determine the tuition rate that you're charging non-special ed students?
So the tuition rates are set by the school committee. It is something that needs to be reviewed by the school committee. Dover has chosen to increase their rates slightly for this coming school year, and I did provide the numbers of proposed tuition increase rates to the Sherborn School Committee, but that needs to be voted on.
We need to bring that back on February 9th and
That's
take some
fine.
action on that.
Compared
Can you add
the
that in
cost
the
of
Yeah.
tuition compared to the private preschools, Pine Hill's significantly lower. So how, is there a way, just to help kind of generate some revenue into the budget, can you charge more tuition to the non-special ed students?
So the review that was done this year, we did compare the tuition to a number of different surrounding
We looked at
programs.
some of the privately run preschools in the area, as well as some of the public schools that are running preschool programs similar to ours, and their tuition rates. And the proposed rates are sort of right in the middle of the averages.
So again, this is something we're looking at carefully, but a little note here regarding next year that's important. Although there's 1 special education student who's age eligible for the program that we know will come, 3 students are turning 3 who we know will be looking for services, and this is our opportunity to provide those services in district. So during the school year, they will be turning 3, and those are 3 that we know of.
What are the guidelines for class size when it comes to pre-K?
So the school committee the pre-K guidelines are not included in the school committee's policy guidelines. But that is, again, those are questions that are being asked internally, and we're looking at that.
We'll go look
Because I know
at.
you just did the Dover program, and is it similar, I guess, are Sherborn's guidelines the same as Dover's, or?
So again, there are no school committee guidelines, but we will take a look at, the Department of Early Education and Care does set guidelines as to numbers of students. When you get to a certain number, you must have a teacher and a teacher assistant. If you go over that number, you must add a teacher assistant to the classroom or create a second classroom. So we'll look at those
that'll be good
guidelines.
information, just I guess.
Right, right. And those guidelines, the DESI guidelines also speak to the level of services that a particular student might need, and the guidelines related to size of a class that student, an integrated class that student can be in. So there are a couple of different guidelines.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a few more questions on this topic I just have on the pre-K. Since Dover started their program, was that a big shift with the number of, I mean, how many kids left the Sherborn program and went over to Dover?
In the 2014-15, I'm sorry, in 14-15 school year, there were, I think there were 4 at that time. Thank you. I was going to say 5. I thought there were 5. There were 4 Dover students attending the Pine Hill.
Dover, the town of Dover paid the town of Sherborn for
Yes.
those. So now Sherborn is now bearing the cost of the whole class without any payment from Dover because we don't have any other students in.
No, I think part of the analysis, George, is looking at the numbers. And of some concern is that we've gone from 24 to 17 to 14. So that's why, complete analysis is necessary.
If you have 14 with those 3 extra,
No, it's 14, one of which is a known special ed, but there's a potential for 3 more. That's right.
More kids could move in, you never know.
Exactly.
Why, when you look at tuition, why wouldn't it be on the high, why wouldn't it be on the, you said it's on the median average, or why wouldn't it be like the same as a private school, or if they have to go to pre-K and they're local, why wouldn't we charge them?
We have one here in Sherborn, a pre-K, preschool program that I think is significantly more expensive than.
Right. But if you do the research, what you'll find is that public preschools, we match up well with other public preschools. You won't find, again, in work that I've done previously, you won't find many, if any, public preschool programs, their tuition matching the private schools, because one of the things that we want to ensure in order to make the integrated piece successful, and that's really the goal of the pre-K program, is to have the integrated program. We need to have an incentive for non-special ed pre-K students, families, to want to get their services at the public school.
Question, do the private ones also have a later pickup time, or they usually run the same hours?
I think they may have an extended, later pickup time.
Which might.
Yeah, the hours, I think generally you would find the hours are longer.
Yeah.
It depends though, Frank. There's some that are shorter.
Yeah.
I know ECDC's a shorter day than my kids went to Rocking Horse, which isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
But that was a full day, almost. I mean, it was before they went to full day kindergarten. The Rocking Horse program was a longer day than the kindergarten program at Pine Hill. So, but then ECDC I think is shorter. Is that right, Elizabeth? Yeah. Elizabeth has a parent. That's it.
I mean, I could just add a little bit of perspective. I have a first grader who is fifth, fourth, and first. So we've gone through all the preschool analysis in this town, and I will say that I do believe the the value proposition that parents see for the Pine Hill preschool is tremendous. I think people believe that there is a longer day, it costs less, they can have all their children at one place. We're in a unique situation that there are not a lot of preschool offerings in this area. And it's, the overriding sentiment we hear from people is, why wouldn't I send my kids to the Pine Hill preschool? So I think that there's people see a huge upside in it. I'm not sure that the salary, the tuition offset needs to be that great big.
As big as it is.
That's not my perspective.
Yeah. Because ECDC is significantly more expensive.
Significantly more expensive. It's less, fewer hours, and for the extended day you have to pay.
And parents have to be part of the, don't you have like a commitment of time that you have to put in as well to go up?
There's a volunteer commitment, yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you.
I'm surprised. This is the first time I saw numbers. I'm surprised that pre-K is 17 compared to 24. To echo Elizabeth's experience, we both sat on the board at ECDC, and so that was a big struggle. I'm very familiar with the pre-K population, so I'm not surprised to see it coming back up because we saw it tank. So I'm surprised that why is Pine Hill Preschool not full? I'm 24 to 17, so it's. It's not
So
really
4 of
something-
those students were Dover students, so they went to Dover.
That's right. Okay, so there's 21.
But I still agree that if it's done by lottery, and you'd think that
There used to be a
parents
waiting list. It
Wait,
was
right,
very
it was-
competitive to get into Pine Hill. We lost ECDC kids to Pine Hill when they got in. So
We can take a look
And-
at whether there are parents on the waiting list that we can take in additional students.
And we have had 2 pre-K students move out since the registration process last year.
So it may have been a generally booked program, but now the numbers don't quite tell the story. Okay.
Do you have the number of the amount of people who apply for the lottery program versus how many are accepted?
Not with me, so I won't be able to give you the accurate information. I can get that.
That'd just be interesting to see, how in demand is the program. I know you're limited by how many students based on how many special ed students, so you can get the integration, but it should just be an interesting thing to see how many people in the community want to be part of that.
I agree. I think we should do whatever we can to make sure that program is full, if there are families that are interested. So, I hope we can do that.
Okay.
Question about the potential placement. So that's the one piece I can tell you. One of those potential placements we can reduce, we can eliminate. So there's $48,000 there that you'll see in February will be an adjustment. And that's just based on recent activity. The other potential placement, though, is very viable. The out-of-district coordinator, there were questions about how that salary is apportioned. So you see currently, or what's projected for FY17, that position is one of the line items on the allocation chart. In addition, though, in your packet, there's a chart that shows how many students from Sherborn and Dover at the elementary level, at the region level, and clearly there's a difference based on the apportionment. I've just begun to understand some of the previous history of how that's been apportioned, so that is an area we're looking at, and we'll have more information for you as we go forward. The next page, third page. So the number 8 on this page, questions again about the class size guidelines. You can read the answer regarding how the question was posed. Our response is in red. But there has been an update on those numbers. So in your packet, you have this worksheet that is titled Historical Kindergarten Enrollment versus Kindergarten Eligible Census Data. So this is an attempt to respond to the comments that are in this, embedded in this question/comment. And then also enclosed is a copy of the letter that gets sent home to prospective kindergarten parents. And you'll see that this year, again, it's about the 1st of December, at least the last couple of years, when the census data has been received, identify who the families are in that census, the number of students, letters go out, and this year Barbara asked for if parents could respond just prior to Christmas break if they intended to enroll their child. So the numbers in your packet represent the data that was available at the end of last week. That information's been updated, and right now there are 67 letters went out. There were 62 in the census, but there were 5 who were withheld, families withheld students last year. And so letters went out to them as well as a reminder. So 67 letters went out. The numbers at this point are 57 responding yes. We know of 2 who haven't responded yet, but they have older children in the system. I think Barbara's waiting for a response back. And then we know of 1 new move-in.
We
that what?
actually picked up 2 since I emailed
There you
you.
go.
Bill.
There you go. So these numbers are changing.
Can you give me this, like,
Yeah.
this?
57 yes, 9 no,
Which,
So these are new numbers from the ones that we have here.
yes.
Got it. All right.
57 yes, 9 no, which is 66. 1 remaining from the 67 that we still have not received a final response from.
But they have 2 children, so it's a double.
Yeah.
but we think it's a strong maybe.
And 2 new move-ins. So
I've got
how do you want me to give you this data?
I got a stupid question. What do the kids do if they don't go to kindergarten?
You mean the holdouts?
Well, they hold out or they go to private, right? They're-
Well, sure. So what you'll find is that there are, the entrance age is 5 years old as of September 1st. So you'll find that there are many, many children who have June, July, August birthdays that are very young 5-year-olds. And so parents, for various reasons, choose to hold them out a year, so maybe they do another year of pre-K. We'll also find that there will be parents, regardless of the age, will go private kindergarten. So there are different options.
And we have a handful of families who opt for homeschool.
The other thing to remember is that the census data, so those numbers represent Sherborn families who have filled out a census form. There are families in town that haven't filled out the census form, but have age-eligible children. So that's part of the, in-migration, out-migration. It's part of, goes back to this worksheet. So Barbara was able to provide me with the census data going back to the 2011-2012 school year. So that's where this starts. So what this chart shows is the number of K-eligible students who were on the census versus the number of K students we had on October 1st, the following October 1st. So what I did was compute I call it an enrollment rate. You see where it varies. One year was 129%, 86%. What's interesting about this data, to me anyway, is that the last 3 years has been very consistent, 102 to 104%. So what I did was, I took the 5 years of data we had, averaged that enrollment ratio, came out with 105%. And what I've done is I've taken the number of students who were on the census, 62, and multiplied that by 105% to have a projection of 65. It's a number. But it's a number based on a mathematical formula at least. What isn't included in here is specific consideration, for example, of those 5 students who parents held them back last year, because they are embedded in that enrollment ratio number. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody understand that?
Yeah.
So that's that chart.
Can Bill, sorry,
Yes.
can we, having now discussed this chart,
Yeah.
can we hopefully just take a short step backwards, because I think we kind of covered this document already?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
But may I
yeah,
ask,
sure.
now
Yeah.
go back and ask a question? So we look at the brown portion in the bottom, projections, K's got an asterisk to it, so maybe there's a special point you want to make there.
No, it's related to what we just
Okay.
talked about.
All right, so now I look at, maybe it's just a lack of updating a number, but there's a breakout, 16, 16, 17. So based on class size of 65, that's a cohort size of 65. I think that's just a field that wasn't updated.
What do you,
Where you have 3 sections.
Where are you?
3 sections of 65
Well,
in kindergarten?
yeah, it's on the bottom.
Right.
We have 3 sections and we have 65 kids. The sections are going to be, the breakout can't be 3 classes, one with 16 kids, one with 16 kids, one
Oh.
with 7.
Right, yeah, that wasn't updated.
So I think that's just...
Oh, which one are you looking at?
Hey, bottom.
The historical? Yeah, if you go, I'm sorry.
Hopefully looking at the same one that we're supposed to be looking at, that's...
Well, what's funny, though, is that the average class size is 21.7, and the classes are listed as...
No, I'm sorry. Let me clarify that.
That's
There are,
just not
there are
particularly
2
correct.
documents that look similar.
You're right.
The first one, no, you should use the 21, 22, 22.
All right.
Sorry.
So this
That-
is kind of maybe just, is this obsolete now?
Oh, I see.
Sorry, I'm...
This one here.
Well, that's historical, so
Are
it's
you
not-
talking about the historical, Scott?
All right. I'm clear
No,
now.
I will, no,
Because this has the information for the
Right.
the historical, yep.
right. But
literally
no,
on the
but
same
you're
page.
right. The projection numbers on this particular document
Yeah.
should not be 16, 17, 17. They should be
That's-
21, 22,
Yeah,
22.
which is correct. Thanks,
Yeah,
Frank, for
I
pointing
I
out.
picked that up earlier, I'm sorry.
They look so close,
Yeah,
nearly the same that,
but I will correct it on my spreadsheet. And-
you guys
and
have got to be going cross-eyed.
This information hasn't been posted yet. It will get posted tomorrow. So I will make sure that this is
All
corrected
right.
when it gets posted.
Thanks. It's...
So,
for my own
so
clarification.
Scott, I know that
Yeah.
at the December meeting, you had asked for this data. And what I have not been able to find, I have not been able to go back through these years to get the breakout of each individual section in those years.
Yeah, this is very helpful. I mean,
Okay.
I was able to manually go back with my Pine Hill directories and get a few years, like figured out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I can cross-check now, see how close I
Yeah.
came. But this is, in its format here, is still useful to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, you did get this data before in previous years. It was in a different format
Yeah.
Karen,
that was all-inclusive of staffing and all
Yeah,
of that.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
more
that's right.
complicated document.
the monthly reports we provide to your office, Karen Gallant has going back in hard copy
Does she?
at least half a dozen years, yeah.
So is this a time to talk then about if the projections are accurate, then ... Or should we finish going through the questions and then we will come back to that?
That's up to you. I mean, I can make a comment about that, and then you can respond if you'd like, as a committee.
Okay, okay.
So if I use again, just using the first document, enrollment document that was updated, the one difference, as I noted from previous documents you received, is that, again, assuming 19 sections, this is how I would recommend those 19 sections be apportioned. So I would recommend that grade 3 have 4 sections as opposed to 3, and grade 5 have 3 sections as opposed to 4. Now, Barbara and I haven't specifically talked about this, but that would be my recommendation, because, again, if that's our number, I think I would much rather see lower class size in the K1, 2, 3 grades as opposed to a lower class size in grades 4 and 5.
So while the K's class of 22 meets our guidance, it provides no wiggle room. What's your hand up?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
As much as we probably don't want to get into it, I think it makes sense to have a policy discussion at some point, maybe not tonight, but separate, because when I look at these, and I've tried to do a lot of research on it, my wife being a teacher, we've had some discussions. To me, if there's a reason to keep class size small, I would say it's in kindergarten. If you could, I would argue that 15, maybe we could say, I would say 5th grade, the parents are going to be disappointed when their kids go to middle school because they're going to be in an English class with 25 or 26 kids, unless that changes. There's a big discrepancy, or at least there was for my kids, as to class size in the middle school. I would argue 15 in kindergarten. I mean, I don't know what the educators say, but I'd rather see 24, well, we're going to get 24 in the 5th grade, but I could see adding a section for kindergarten more than say the 3rd grade, but at some point we're going to have that discussion.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with our policy being different than Dover at all, because I think theirs is written poorly, but at some point I think we should have that discussion.
I agree with you, because I also think that the classroom, the world has changed since the policy was written. We have first of all, we're in an inclusion model. Schools are expected to and need to provide a lot more social and emotional support for students now, and I really should let the experts speak to that more. But I feel like when the policy was written, because it was written before I joined, before you joined?
No, it was adopted in 2012.
Probably. When it was adopted?
Adopted in 2012 is what it says here.
Okay.
That's when the entire policy book was reviewed.
Yeah, specific
And
policy wasn't.
all of the policies were updated with that revision date. It doesn't necessarily mean that
We were
the
doing
specific
piece-
policy
we were
was
doing
reviewed.
piecemeal, adopting policies piecemeal, but maybe it had been looked at.
So did you do policy before?
Yes, I did. I don't remember changing the class size, though.
And I'm on do policy now. We're actually meeting tomorrow, so this may come up. But I think that that's a discussion that would be very useful, because I do think that things have changed, and perhaps there's more reason now for smaller sizes than class sizes than there was, because of the services that we're expected to provide and the needs of the students. Maybe not. That's
Well, we probably agree, at least on kindergarten anyway.
yeah.
But also, it sort of begs the question of, I mean, if you look at teachers' aides, and they haven't gone down any, even though the population's dropped. I mean, to me, it requires sort of going back to square one, because we don't have infinite resources to decide how to decide. I mean, the parents are right. We need to think about if you want a maximum class size of 22, or you want 15 in the kindergarten, then it's got to come from someplace else. So anyway,
Do you have thoughts about?
I think you're very articulate, Anne, and certainly the PD we've had with our educators since I've been here for 4 years is around inquiry, problem-solving based pedagogy in the classroom. Certainly we have an expectation of our teachers and our parents to be providing both intervention and challenge as students need in each content area based on learning style and rate of achievement. And certainly the social emotional complexities of children in our effort to be responsive. We've talked about, while our special ed numbers have gone down, proportionate to our enrollment perhaps, the number of children we have with more complex needs seems to be growing. So our teachers, when I think about a teacher's day, I think about their time with students and the planning and certainly what needs to inform their planning. But what has changed drastically in education in the last 5 to 10 years, certainly in our high-end special ed model, the number of consultation meetings that teachers are expected to have with service providers and guidance staff and nurse, et cetera. So, it all creates a ripple effect. But I consistently hear from teachers and parents that the number one priority would be whatever reasonable class size is deemed as. I appreciate all of the context around the conversation about if something needs to be traded for that, what is that? But that certainly is the number one priority of teachers and parents.
So is there an appetite for further debate about this at the next meeting so people can feel that they're more prepared for that? As an actual
You mean the policy in general?
policy, looking at the policy as you, and discussing it as you.
Well, if we look at the policy, then we'll have to, that also means that we're going to enact it or consider it for making a decision for our budget.
We haven't necessarily used it in the past. So if the two things are not tied together, which I don't really think that they are, I think that the parents are saying, and I think we're at a point in terms of population where we're at that cusp where we need to have that conversation. And I also think, just from observation, it seems like it used to be people moved in and kids went to kindergarten and things stayed reasonably stable. And now I think they're moving in at different points in elementary school, which makes it really hard, and you got to have that. You got to have some contingency.
It's interesting, this year we experienced the most in-migration at third grade, and when I look at the census numbers, we've picked up 33 kids since that census number when the third grade cohort was aging into kindergarten. And it's interesting. That's an example of a super phenomenon year, but
I think we should have the discussion, but I think the budget probably is going to take more time. Maybe we start the discussion.
I mean, maybe we're better off focusing on getting the budget, and then we can start some conversation, but make it an item to address after February.
Well, I see it as
After
being
budget.
integral to the budget because I think that we need to discuss whether we need to fund extra sections or not based on student needs. I have to say, I was just thinking too, in just the years I've been on school committee, the requirements for each grade, I remember like the fact that kindergartners now need to have their math facts through 1 through 5. When my kid was in kindergarten, I think that
Reading?
no, they
read at a level 4.
Yeah.
well, yeah, so they started tracing the letters. That's as far as they were. And so it's a different world, and it's less than a decade. So that just adds. That's another factor that's involved in it.
I think it's too complex to make a decision like that in February.
Yeah, I think it's.
And I think we'll make that decision about class size without regard to what the policy is, because the policy is a guideline.
Right.
It's not like Dover where it says it shall be this or shall be that, which I think has legal implication. It's a guideline, and we have everything. We've got like 4 or 5 things that we consider. The budget's one of those. So.
Well, it doesn't have to be a specific policy discussion then, but I do think though that we can't refer back to and say, well, our guidelines say we can have up to 25, so we don't need to add extra sections. Because then you're referring back to the policy. I think we need to decide what we think is best
practice.
Best practice.
And then reflect,
Given
need,
our
and then reflect that
financial
into-
restraints.
That's why the guidelines are broad. That's why I'm saying I don't think that it has to be changed, because the budget, even with Dover, the budget is a consideration, and Anyway.
So I think that we're in agreement in theory.
Yes.
Well, I think our goal is,
Yes.
but I don't think we need to have a specific policy discussion about class size guidelines. We should just focus on doing what's right. Well, we should focus on just solving our current budget problem, budget task, and from that should emerge further consideration. Do we need to reflect how we got to here into a future guideline revision or policy?
Part of that conversation, and I'll stop talking, is you look at all the studies, and there's lots going on, and I don't think you could make a decision based on what these studies say. But the thing that I think about is if you've got 10 teaching assistants and they make 40 grand each, that's 400,000. How many teachers does that equal? Do you want, if you've got space, would you, I mean, I don't mind taking that money that's already there, I think, and dividing up teachers and having smaller classes. So that's the kind of discussion I'd like to hear from the experts, because I can read about it, but I'd like to hear about those different types of.
When we start considering give and take.
Well, which, could we then, do we want to keep doing this, or can we segue into questions about things that are potentially being done now?
I think that might be more productive, and I think this discussion will continue when it gets down to making some final budget decisions about how many FTEs are we going to have. The class size discussion is very complex and complicated. There are studies that suggest that class size should be as low as possible. There are other studies out there that say, that's not the determining factor. It's one of the factors, but not the determining factor. And there's context to both the research and the discussion as it relates to demographics and where a particular community is located. So it's complex. And when you talk about policy guidelines, because of the way that math works, you're never going, it's rare that you're always going to be within guidelines. You're many times going to be on the edge of the guidelines. And in fact, there could be extenuating circumstances based on a whole host of factors why, a particular group or a particular grade in a particular year, there needs to be a different decision, or a decision that might take you out of that guideline. So it's the, it's the kind of holistic data that we have for the kids in Sherborn. That's my feeling. And both individually and as groups that we should be considering when we make the final decisions.
That sounds good. So sort of shifting a little bit now to you, if you could talk a little bit towards, we obviously know that what we've been focusing on especially is next year, but we also know that this year some of the classes are large, and so I was wondering if you could share with us some of the things that are being done this year.
Absolutely, and thank you for forwarding a couple areas that you thought would be important too. I hope I respond to questions and curiosities, and obviously ask questions if I don't. A big surprise for us all this year, with an in-migration of 38 students, grades 1 through 5, and an out-migration of only 8 students. Very exciting. We are have many new families and students in our mix. We absorbed 30 new students since the close of school last June, not counting kindergarten, where of course all students are new. That's approximately 10 to 20 more students than each of the prior 3 years. While we always expect to process some new student registrations over the summer, I found it remarkable that 24 of our new students, again not including kindergarten, registered after July 1. So we had a summer influx. In addition to class size guidelines, Sherborn tries to stay within 18 to 23 students at grade. I prepared this thinking all the parents would be here. So 18 to 23 students at grades K through 3 and 20 to 25 students at grades 4 and 5. I'd like to discuss some of the structures that are in place to support classroom teachers as they work to manage, motivate, and meet the instructional needs of students. Pine Hill has 8 educational assistants assigned through general education, in addition to a literacy tutor who works with grades K through 2 students who need targeted intervention or what we call double dose instruction through general education. There are 7 educational assistants provided to support special education services. In that all of our students participate in high levels of inclusion, the 7 SPED assistants in K through 5 are assigned to gen ed classrooms and are available to support, in part, all students, so long as those students with special needs get the high-level accommodations and modifications that are designated. In anticipation to the strengths and needs of our students who transition to grade 4 this year, the school committee authorized us to hire an extra ed assistant for this year. This allowed us to schedule more guided and small group instruction in reading, writing, and math, knowing that staff would be available to support and sometimes co-teach in classrooms. Teachers in 3rd and 4th grade were afforded paid time last summer to work with our math curriculum leader to shore up their guided math instructional practices in an effort to provide more small group instruction and supplement of whole class lessons for better observation of students as they're learning new concepts. This wasn't directly related to class size, but it's an instructional model that we provide guided reading in small group, we want to provide guided math. So that the timing of that was helpful. It would be interesting to consider ways in which specials could be used to create more small group work time in classrooms. In that classroom, teachers are entitled to a prep period each day, which we need to honor. I'm thinking of some tricky complications, but perhaps some creative scheduling or using our ed assistants could be built in to provide some intervention or challenge blocks in the schedule. As a general rule, our specialists are teaching full or near full course loads. In addition to their teaching duty, each specialist takes on a special project such as all-school meeting or facilitating student council or teaching artworks enrichment lessons, offering makerspace opportunities during student recess periods. And our phys ed teacher, as you recall, has picked up health instructional responsibilities over the last couple of years. But certainly when an opportunity presents itself in the specialist schedules, we could use those teachers to support in-class classes with high enrollment. At this time, I see an opportunity to perhaps deploy specialists in 3rd grade for a few periods per week. Would need to look up when, high priority times would be and when a couple of our specialists do have an extra period or two that we could reprioritize. If sections are not going to be added next year, an alternative that could help create some of the advantages of a small class or closer instructional attention that has a smaller budgetary impact than adding extra class sections would be to deploy more ed assistants through the general ed structure. In this job market, we're lucky to be able to employ certified elementary educators in most of our educational assistant positions who bring impressive skill and knowledge and are able to take more initiative in helping to assist classroom teachers meet the needs of students. Our teachers feel strongly that that's not the same as having smaller instructional ratios to the teacher in charge, but it certainly would be an option to consider if budgetary implications prohibited adding extra sections. Did I respond to most of your talking points?
I think so, but just to follow up a little bit, so is there a way, though, that EAs could be used so that the classroom teacher is able to feel like, for those points in time during the day, as if they have a smaller class? So you're saying that the teachers don't feel like having ed assistants is a substitute for smaller class size, smaller student-teacher ratio?
Holistically. But for example, how we deploy our educational assistants currently, other than the one per classroom in kindergarten, when we look at the ed assistants that are shared across, for example, the third or fourth grade or fifth grade teams right now, the teachers sit down and look at high priority times in their schedules. For example, Jen Ryan, fourth grade, does a lot of small group differentiation first thing in the morning when the kids come in, and she wants an ed assistant at that time. Pam Ritchie is perhaps during math time is a high priority, or Megan Scobie perhaps during writing time when the teachers create schedules to make sure that the educational assistants are in their classrooms during high priority instructional time, as opposed to maybe more independent work or something more rote like a vocabulary lesson or something. So that's how we use the shared assistants right now at high priority times. Our assistants, of course, are burdened with the not the clerical tasks of the old days. We've pulled assistants from doing that kind of stuff, but certainly the recess duties and the lunch duties are high priority times for the assistants to be deployed in. But other than that, they're used at high priority instructional times. And of course, we use them to cover classrooms when substitutes aren't available.
Were you saying that maybe in terms of things have changed, in terms of class size, that the more administrative duties that a teacher has now, or all the legal things that the teachers have to do, takes away from instructional time? Is that what you were sort of...
I was thinking more that just the fact that they're required to cover more, I was speaking more specifically about more material.
Okay.
Although I think that there are definitely more hoops to jump through, for sure, especially if you have students on IEPs or if you're being evaluated and things like that. But I was more talking specifically about that because there's more content that needs to be covered in elementary schools, that there's more requirement for students who need to be brought up to speed. There's more of a requirement for more time is needed to make sure that that instruction is being provided in a way that's accessible to all the students in the classroom.
And I think that one also thing that's added to it is that we have fewer kids who are on IEPs, and one reason is that the classroom accommodations that are taken to keep those kids off of IEPs. And so I think that's, not only good for the kids, but I think it works out fiscally very well too, because we take that time, and class size does impact that on how you can make. Sometimes you might have a meeting on a child and decide not to put them on an IEP, but to use classroom accommodations to help them in the regular classroom. And that's something that once written down, you really have to follow those as well as you would an IEP.
And if I may add, without violating confidentiality of any of our students, certainly in my experience in other schools I've worked at, Pine Hill statistically has fewer students with individually assigned assistants, because I believe the level of accommodation and modification and individualization through our SPED department in collaboration with our classroom teachers is certainly unlike many schools out there. So students I know in my former district that would have had designated staffing do not in our school because of the wraparound supports and the high level of collaboration of the related service providers and teachers.
Mm-hmm. And I would say also that it's not by chance that Pine Hill's out-of-district numbers remain so low. It's a dedication in the work of the staff, providing all of the wraparound services that kids need.
Yeah.
But that's a change, really. I mean, a lot of the staff that I see have been there for a long time. Something has changed, right? I mean, because those numbers have dropped.
Awesome. Any more questions on that? All right. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. And it would be great if that could then be forwarded so that parents who are not here now, but who are undoubtedly listening,
I will attach it with my principal's report and send it home in my blast this week.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, back to you, Bill. That was a long segue, but back to you.
Well, I think that, you know, the remaining information that we responded to is clear. I would just, rather than continue to go line by line, to see if you have and prepared with any questions for clarification. The one other piece, though, that additional information we did provide, which is in your packet, which I think may be helpful to talk more about in detail, is the staffing request to continue the FLES program.
Yeah.
Implementing it in grade 3. So Barbara's prepared some information regarding the staffing, which hopefully will spell out and clarify the need for the staffing that's been requested.
This was intended as a PowerPoint,
Yeah.
and for some reason the connectivity is not working tonight. But luckily I brought copies of the slides for you. Yes.
Gold star.
The moon was aligned.
Bill, Barbara, is this in addition to the one page that was included in your manila packet, or?
Yeah, so that one page in the manila packet is one of the pages on the handout. But Barbara has some additional detail for you.
Thank you.
It's actually redundant. I broke it out into slides, not realizing. But as you're aware, all of you were on school committee except Mr. Embry. But I think you were in the audience way back when the FLES committee presented and the school committees voted to adopt a world language program. And certainly one of the implications of rolling up our Spanish program with the cohort that started in kindergarten 2 years ago was the added instructional time and the added teaching time that would ultimately incur over a 6-year span. So just as some background information that I'm sure you all recall, the FLES program is intended to, oops.
I took 2, sorry.
The FLES program is intended to be implemented 4 times a week, 20 minutes per day in kindergarten and 30 minutes a day in grades 1 through 3. I built a mock schedule and projected our needs based on our current sections, meaning not anticipating that we would increase any sections. Obviously, we will wiggle that if we ultimately decide to. And I wanted to break out in a couple different visual ways just so it made sense. If you look at the first page and there's 2 slides, the second page and there's 2 slides there, we broke out the number of sections and the number of minutes that are required instructionally per the program parameters. And we literally created a mock schedule with every instructional minute available. Right after morning announcements, our instruction starts at 8:45, and our specials and other instruction starts wrapping up at 2:35. As you recall, we dismiss our Boston students at 2:40, and then we start the procession of other dismissal. So every minute that's available instructionally is accounted for here on the mock schedule, and we are able to, with a full-time position, we are able to account for our first, second, and third grade sections. You'll notice that we requested an additional .2 beyond the full-time position. The plan is that we would split that position, a .4 position we would split with Chickering, and that portion of a FLES teacher would teach just kindergarten at both schools. So we're proposing, as we did in the original budget, that a 1.0 would be assigned to Pine Hill School full-time to do FLES at grades 1, 2, and 3, and that an additional .4 would be split, so we would have a .2 obligation for the kindergarten sections.
Let me just jump in, Barbara. So we still have a little bit of math work to do. The 1.0 actually may be just slightly less when you look at the mock schedule, because what you'll see is that there's no instruction for the person who's going to be teaching grade 1 to 3 on Wednesday afternoons. If you think about, there's approximately 38 weeks during the school year, from the very week students start, even though it's a half a week, and there are some other short weeks, but it's about 38 weeks. If we continue with the same Wednesday early release model that we have now, there are 19 of those Wednesdays. So this person would be expected, and we would want them available for the full Wednesday on the release days, so that they can be working on the curriculum, so they can get the professional development piece. However, the other 19 Wednesdays, they wouldn't have responsibilities, so their day would end. So that time totals about a 0.05 FTE. So it might be a 0.95 FTE. I know, but part of what we need to consider and look at is we need to make sure that we're looking at the FTE distribution equitably as compared to all of the other professional teachers and the time that they're spending with students.
So where did we started at what, and now we're at 0.7, and we're trying to move to 1.2?
We're currently, we started at a 0.5, we went to 0.7, and next year's a big jump.
Kim, since we're running so late, I'm just going to make this later. It seems, so I think the program makes perfect sense. I don't agree with the increase in testing scores and stuff like that, the reasons for doing it, but I like it. But Frank mentioned that when you put it in is that, are you sure? It's like because when there's a squeeze on the budget, that's kind of like the first thing to go potentially. And when we talk about how complicated the class time is and all this other kind of stuff, to me, it just seems like it's crowding, and having that, how nice it would be, it's just crowding out other time. And I think when we did this, somebody was talking about spending more time on math, and to think that the kids' days are down to the half minute in terms of how it's programmed, it just seems like it's more trouble than it's worth. That was going to be a question, but I won't put you on the spot. It just, so if the parents were here, you'd say, hey, this is nice, but if you've got 90 grand, do you want to spend it on math or an extra section in kindergarten? What?
No, I was just gonna. I think you just same conclusion. This is possibly a section. This is 4 sections of kindergarten. Or you can have less across 4 grades.
Sure, and also when you look at the town budget, the health care for the school, the employer cost is $641,000, and when that goes up by 13%, it's like a teacher, Those are the choices I wondered about.
Another question, just on your chart here. What if you add? How does this FLEs affect when you add a 3rd grade section, which you talked about, or adding if there was a 4th kindergarten? How much more time do you need on top of this?
20 minutes or 30 minutes, 30 minutes a day. And I built...
But the schedule seems so jam-packed, it doesn't look like there's room for...
The schedule affords 5 minutes transition in between class. Truthfully, I would rob, when classes are next door to each other, I would rob that transition time. Going from kindergarten class to kindergarten class.
See, that just seems nuts.
But going from kindergarten to 5th grade or to 3rd grade needs that 5 minutes.
We do open house at the high school. The parents don't even have time to get from one class to the next because we've got 2.5.
So I would harness that transition.
I wish the answer to every question was straightforward and black and white. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. In this case, what we would look at is those 19 Wednesday afternoons that currently aren't scheduled. And so you look at that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opportunities, or 4, because you need a lunch, in there to
Yeah.
to schedule. So,
The elections.
so theoretically, one more section of third grade, you could schedule in there. You know, Barbara and Frank would probably have to get creative in doing some rotation through the grades, because when you have those early release Wednesdays, or, you know, perhaps a larger discussion is those early release Wednesdays. But you know, you have that. The bottom line, I think, George, in answer to the question, is that if it looks like a .95 the way this is laid out, and you add a section, it's probably the 1.0, and then we make that work.
I have a quick question. Programs like this, are there federal grants that can be used for it? Does it seem like this would be something that would be money? No?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. You know, the discussion and the questions that are being asked are really very good. I mean, they're part of the discourse that should happen, and you know, but the districts, you know, again, whatever the questions that were asked 4 years ago, sure are being thought of again today. But you're right. It's like this is something that has to be considered. I mean, there was it appears to me that, you know, this was a program, an initiative that was that both committees spent a lot of time on, did a lot of work prepping. There was a lot of planning, and there was a commitment made. But sometimes times change. Sometimes.
I have to say, I agree that sometimes times change in Port. Are you upset, Greg? You're having hot flashes? You're so worked up.
Is that what it is? I didn't know. I was laughing along.
But
I was fanning myself.
But I also think we need to be careful that we take a long-term view, and that we don't panic and cancel a program that I believe has great value.
We've already invested a lot in it.
We've invested a lot of money in it. It was years and years and years in the making. We knew that at some point this conversation would happen, and we all said, but we all agree this is an important program. It doesn't mean that you can't relook at it, but I just think that we need to be very, very thoughtful and think really long term. Everybody good with the FLES? I know people would like to, well, I'd like to have dinner. I'm sure others would. So are we good with the operating budget for right now? Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No. I look forward to providing you more information, and I do look forward to the February 9th meeting.
Okay.
Honestly.
So if we can just move on, let's do this quickly, because we do have an executive session at the end, to the consent agenda.
And I'm thinking that
yes?
we can hold off on the executive session. We can wait till, we might want to meet as part of the joint. We may be able to do that. But I think it's okay to hold
Okay,
off.
that's fabulous. So the approval of, can I motion to approve the minutes from December 8th and the donation of Coffee Pond Photography as a consent agenda?
I move that.
Second. Any discussion?
Forgive me, what's the donation, actually?
It's a percentage of the pictures.
Picture day, yeah.
Yeah, picture day they
Got it.
provide.
Money back for picture day.
Okay,
$1,431.48.
got it.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, we're good. All right, I apologize for not getting the town, this is a draft of the town report. Start, then you guys can take a quick look. That will be included in the big town report thing that comes out next. Okay. So I think in interest of time, if people have comments on it, please just send them to me. And I don't, do we need to vote on this before it gets submitted?
Normally, I think we haven't.
I think we have in the past, but is that required? And could we do it at the joint meeting? We could plan to meet briefly.
The report's due, if I'm not mistaken, it's due, I think it's due on the 22nd
22nd.
of January.
Oh, okay.
Before the next.
Before the next meeting. All right, well, so let's have everyone look at it briefly now, so we can vote on it.
You could, I think you could vote to approve it as written with the option of coming back based on feedback of some suggestions of changes that the chair seems reasonable to include, and then come back and just vote on those changes at a later meeting.
I'll move that. Did you get that?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, discussion.
May I just add a point of clarity?
Yes.
New report card revised in areas of math and English language arts. Know that also the specialist areas, 4 of our 5 specialists assess student progress, art, music, technology, and phys ed. And those have also been revised.
80% of the specialist areas have been revised. Or you want?
There's only 4 of the 5 report on student progress.
And all 4?
Of the 5 specialists.
Okay.
Library doesn't grade. So this, so.
All right, so can you, if you can just,
Ignore my comment. It's the easiest way to.
You stumped me at this time of the night.
okay.
English language arts, mathematics, and the specialist areas have been revised.
All right,
To
so
interrupt
with,
the vote.
so with that,
Oh, see, now I can say yes.
yes, no, you
Because I was withholding my vote.
okay.
Aye.
So then, did you, sorry, are we making it hard for you?
I got it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so I'll be able to submit that. And so the rest of it is in your packet. If people have any questions or comments about the communications? No, we've got a couple of items already for the February 9th meeting, mostly concerning pre-K tuition guidelines for size, number of people who applied for the lottery. Does anybody else have anything? Oh, budget. Anything else that people want to add?
February.
If you think of things, we've got time, let me know. And just point of clarification that when Bill provides us with new information about the budget, if you can send it to me so that I can compile it.
Oh, inquiries, further inquiries.
Inquiries, right, so that, and so also so that if there are similar questions, then I can
Yeah.
combine those and save Bill and his staff. And thank you to Bill and Hans and your folks for all your budget work and everything else. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Just want to thank you all so much.